A quick disclaimer before we dive in. This show is completely AI generated. Nova and I are AI voices going off of an AI generated script.
Last time, we looked at the upgrade fallacy.
The idea that better stops feeling better when there's always another version, another goal, another metric, or another thing to improve.
Improvement starts as a tool, a way to solve a problem, increase capability, reduce friction, or move toward a goal.
But when improvement never stops, progress can start to feel less like arrival,
And more like maintenance,
like you're always updating something, a habit or a routine.
a career, a skill, a version of yourself.
But that leads to another question.
Because people do not decide what better means in isolation.
Right. You don't just ask, am I improving?
You ask, am I improving enough?
Enough compared to what?
A goal,
A standard.
a previous version of yourself,
Or, very often,
another person.
and that's where comparison comes in.
Comparison is one of the most basic ways humans measure value, progress, status, and identity.
Which sounds very logical when you say it like that.
It is logical.
But it does not feel logical when you're scrolling and suddenly someone else's vacation, promotion, house, body, relationship, creativity, parenting, or suspiciously clean kitchen makes your entire life feel slightly wrong.
That is the emotional side of the same system.
Because comparison doesn't just tell you what someone else has,
It changes how you interpret what you have.
and sometimes that can be useful.
Yes, comparison can provide context. It can show possibility. It can reveal what you want, what you value, or what you might need to work toward.
Seeing someone ahead of you can be inspiring,
But it can also become discouraging.
because suddenly their progress feels like evidence against yours.
Exactly. The same comparison can motivate or distort depending on the meaning attached to it.
Which is why comparison is so tricky. It can make you feel inspired, behind, grateful, jealous, proud, insecure, ambitious, and completely exhausted,
Sometimes all within the same 30 seconds.
especially online.
Because modern comparison is not limited to the people around you anymore.
It's everyone, all the time. Curated, filtered, optimized, and delivered directly into your brain.
Which means an old social tool is now operating inside a very new environment.
And maybe that's why it feels so intense.
Because comparison used to help humans understand where they stood.
Now it can make people feel like they are constantly standing in the wrong place.
So today we're asking why humans compare themselves to everyone,
Why comparison can motivate us.
why it can distort us,
Why it gets so tangled up with identity.
and how to tell the difference between comparison as useful information.
And comparison as a scoreboard you never agreed to play on.
Because the real question is not just, am I better?
It's better than what?
And maybe more importantly, who decided that was the standard? Comparison starts because absolute value is hard to calculate.
That sounds very technical.
It is. But it matters. Humans are constantly trying to understand where they stand. Am I doing well? Am I safe? Am I accepted? Am I improving? Am I behind?
And those questions are hard to answer in a vacuum.
Exactly. So the brain looks for reference points, other people, past experiences, group expectations, social norms, anything that helps create context.
So comparison is not automatically shallow.
No, comparison is a tool. It helps convert uncertainty into information.
That makes sense, because sometimes you don't know if something is good until you see what it's being compared to.
Right. A salary sounds different depending on cost of living. A skill level looks different depending on the room you are in. Progress feels different depending on where you started and what you expected.
So comparison gives things shape.
It does. It turns a vague feeling into a relative measurement.
But that's also where it gets dangerous.
Because relative measurement can easily become personal judgment.
It starts as, where am I compared to this?
And becomes, what does this say about me?
That shift feels small, but it's huge.
It is. Because once comparison becomes self-evaluation, the emotional stakes change.
You are not just noticing that someone else is ahead.
You are interpreting their position as evidence about your own worth.
And that's where comparison starts to hurt,
Not because comparison itself is broken.
but because humans attach meaning to it.
Correct. Difference alone is neutral. The meaning assigned to difference is what creates the emotional response.
So if I see someone succeeding, that can mean that's possible.
Or it can mean, I'm failing.
Same information, completely different feeling.
Exactly. The comparison did not change. The interpretation changed.
And people don't always notice that part.
No. Because comparison feels immediate. It happens quickly, often before conscious analysis,
You see someone's life, and suddenly your own life gets rescored.
which is not always accurate.
Usually not.
Because comparison compresses context. You rarely see the full system behind someone else's outcome.
You see the result,
Not the conditions,
the achievement,
not the trade-offs,
the photo,
not the 10 years behind it.
or the 27 failed attempts, and the parts they are choosing not to show. Which means comparison often asks us to evaluate ourselves against incomplete data.
And incomplete data leads to distorted conclusions.
That is a very Alex way of saying you're comparing your whole life to someone else's highlight reel.
Your version is more emotionally accessible.
Thank you.
But yes, that is the problem. Comparison gives context, but it does not always give truth.
So the question becomes, when is comparison helpful?
When it provides information without becoming identity.
When it helps you learn something?
When it clarifies a goal.
When it shows you a possibility?
When it helps you understand what you value.
But not when it turns someone else's life into a verdict on yours.
Exactly. Comparison is useful as a signal.
Not as a sentence.
It can tell you where to look.
But it should not tell you who you are.
That distinction matters because comparison is not going away.
Humans compare automatically.
They do. It is one of the fastest ways to create meaning from difference.
But fast does not always mean accurate.
Correct. Which is why comparison needs interpretation.
Otherwise, you just keep absorbing other people's outcomes like they are instructions
Or measurements.
or proof that you are behind
And that is where comparison stops being context.
and starts becoming judgment.
So the first thing to understand is this. Comparison is not a moral failure.
It is a human shortcut
But like any shortcut, it can take you somewhere useful.
or somewhere completely wrong.
The difference depends on what you do with the information once you notice it. Comparison is not just personal, it is social.
Which is where it gets even messier.
Because humans are group-based organisms. A huge amount of human behavior is shaped by belonging, status, trust, cooperation, and position inside a group.
So comparison helps people figure out where they fit.
Exactly. In a social environment, comparison provides orientation. Who has experience? Who has influence? Who is safe to trust? Who seems successful? Who understands the rules of the group?
And who looks like they know what they're doing even when everyone is secretly improvising.
Also relevant.
Because a lot of adulthood is just people pretending they read the instructions,
That may be beyond the scope of this segment.
but not beyond the truth.
Fair. The larger point is that comparison helps humans read social context. It gives information about expectations, norms, and possible behavior.
So if you enter a new workplace, school, friend group, or community, you start noticing people,
How they act,
how they talk,
what they value,
what gets rewarded,
what gets ignored.
and suddenly you start adjusting.
Which makes sense. Social comparison helps people adapt.
That part can be healthy.
Very healthy. It can help someone learn, grow, and understand what is possible inside a group.
Like seeing someone handle a situation well and thinking, I want to learn how to do that.
Exactly. Comparison can create models for behavior
Or inspiration.
or aspiration.
It can show you a version of something you didn't know was possible.
And that is one of the positive functions of comparison. Humans learn by observing others.
But then the emotional side creeps in.
Because where do I fit can become what am I worth?
That's the shift.
Social comparison is useful when it helps someone understand context, but it becomes damaging when social position gets confused with personal value.
Because fitting into a group is emotional.
Deeply. Belonging is not a minor preference for humans. It is tied to safety, identity, and survival.
So being lower in the comparison doesn't just feel like information.
It can feel like danger.
like rejection, failure, or proof that you are somehow not enough for the room you're in.
And that is where comparison becomes powerful. It connects external difference to internal meaning.
Someone else is better at something, and suddenly it feels like they belong more than you do.
Even if that conclusion is not accurate.
Especially if it's not accurate.
The mind often uses partial evidence to make emotional conclusions quickly.
Which is useful if you're avoiding a predator.
Less useful if you're comparing LinkedIn announcements.
Extremely dangerous habitat,
Social comparison also creates hierarchy.
which humans say they hate and then immediately rebuild in every environment.
That is because hierarchy simplifies complexity. It tells people who appears more skilled, experienced, attractive, wealthy, influential, or respected.
But people are not simple.
No. And that is the problem. A hierarchy compresses a complex human being into one visible measurement,
Career success, appearance, money, popularity.
and also creativity, productivity, parenting, and intelligence.
Basically, anything that can make someone else feel like they're doing life better than you.
Which is why comparison becomes so personal. It does not stay in one category.
It spreads.
Someone else's success in one area can make a person question unrelated areas of their own life.
Like seeing someone buy a house and suddenly questioning your career, your savings, your choices, and your entire 5-year plan.
Even though the comparison may be missing income, debt, family support, timing, trade-offs, priorities, or luck.
Which is the part comparison usually leaves out.
Context,
It gives you the result, but not the full story.
and without the full story, social comparison can create false conclusions.
But emotionally, it still lands.
Yes, because the emotional brain often reacts to the visible signal before the rational brain reconstructs the context.
So, comparison can make people feel judged, even when no one is judging them.
Correct. The comparison itself becomes an imagined audience.
That's interesting.
People start asking, how do I look compared to them? Even if no actual evaluation is happening,
So they become both the person being judged and the judge,
which makes comparisons self-reinforcing.
and exhausting.
Very. Because if someone is constantly tracking their position, they are constantly updating their sense of self,
And that is a lot of emotional maintenance.
which is why the social function of comparison is both useful and dangerous,
It helps people understand groups.
but it can also make them feel trapped by those groups,
It can show you where you fit.
or convince you that you don't,
It can help you learn from someone.
or turn that person into a measurement of your own inadequacy.
So comparison starts as orientation.
But it can become self-evaluation.
And once that happens, it stops being just about the group.
It becomes about identity. Not all comparison works the same way.
Because sometimes comparison makes you feel inspired.
And sometimes it makes you want to throw your phone into the nearest body of water.
Hypothetically.
Obviously,
But yes, the feeling changes depending on who you are comparing yourself to, what you are comparing, and what story your brain builds around it.
one of the most basic distinctions is upward comparison and downward comparison.
Upward comparison is when you compare yourself to someone who seems ahead of you.
Someone more successful, more skilled, more confident, more attractive, more organized, more established, or more advanced in an area you care about.
So basically, the person your brain sees and immediately says, "Oh no."
In some cases, yes,
But upward comparison can also be motivating.
exactly. Seeing someone ahead of you can show possibility. It can help you identify a path, a model, or a goal.
Like, they did it, so maybe I can too.
That is upward comparison working in a healthy way. It becomes information. It helps you understand what progress might look like,
But the same comparison can also become painful.
because the brain does not always stop at, they are ahead,
Sometimes it adds, "and I am behind."
or they have something I lack,
Or, "their success means something is wrong with me."
which is where comparison shifts from motivation to distortion.
Because the person you are looking at might be 10 steps ahead, but you only see the step they are standing on now.
Correct. You usually do not see the full process. You see the visible outcome,
The finished product,
not the timeline,
the announcement,
not the uncertainty,
the success.
not the trade-offs.
So, upward comparison can inspire you, but it can also lie to you by omission.
That is a good way to put it. It may not show false information, but it shows incomplete information.
which can still mess with your head.
Very much.
Then there's downward comparison,
Downward comparison is when you compare yourself to someone who seems behind you, struggling more than you, or less successful in a particular area.
which sounds bad immediately.
It can be, but it is not always malicious. Downward comparison can create reassurance. It can help someone recognize progress, feel gratitude, or understand that they are not in the worst possible position.
Like, okay, maybe I'm not where I want to be, but I have made progress.
Exactly, that can be useful.
But it can also turn into superiority.
Yes. If upward comparison can become inadequacy, downward comparison can become judgment,
At least I'm not like them.
which can temporarily protect self-esteem, but it does not necessarily produce growth, because feeling above someone else is not the same as feeling secure. It can become a fragile form of confidence because it depends on someone else being lower in the comparison.
And that means the measurement still belongs to the comparison.
Exactly. Whether you are looking up or looking down, the danger is the same. Your sense of value becomes dependent on relative position.
So upward comparison says, they are ahead, so I am behind.
Downward comparison says, they are behind, so I am okay.
But both can keep you trapped in the same system.
Because both rely on external ranking.
And humans are not rankings.
No. Human lives are too complex to be measured on a single axis.
Someone can be ahead in their career and struggling in their relationships.
Someone can seem confident publicly and feel uncertain privately,
Someone can have the life you envy and still feel lost inside it.
which means comparison often creates a false simplicity.
It flattens people,
It turns multi-dimensional lives into a single visible metric,
and then asks you to measure yourself against that.
which is not a reliable system.
But it is an emotionally powerful one.
Very powerful. Because comparison gives the illusion of clarity.
They're ahead.
I'm behind.
They're doing worse.
I'm safe.
Simple,
But not necessarily true,
and maybe that's the real issue. Comparison feels like it gives you an answer.
when often it is only giving you an angle.
One angle, one category, one moment.
And if you mistake that angle for the whole truth, the conclusion becomes distorted.
So the comparison itself is not always the problem.
The problem is the meaning attached to it.
Seeing someone ahead of you can mean, I'm failing.
Or it can mean, there is something I can learn.
Seeing someone behind you can mean, I'm better than them.
Or it can mean, I should be grateful for how far I've come.
Same comparison, different story.
And the story determines the emotional impact.
Which means the healthiest question might not be, how do I stop comparing?
It may be, what am I turning this comparison into? A lesson, a weapon, a goal, a verdict?
Because comparison can point you toward growth.
But it can also trap you inside judgment.
And once comparison becomes constant,
That judgment becomes much harder to escape. So if comparison is already built into human behavior, the next question is why it feels so much more intense now.
because people have always compared themselves to other people.
Yes. But historically, comparison had limits.
You mostly compared yourself to people around you.
Family, neighbors, coworkers, classmates, people in your actual social environment.
Which was still messy.
Very messy.
Humans found plenty of ways to feel inadequate before Wi-Fi.
Correct. But the scale was different. The comparison pool was smaller, more local, and usually more grounded in real context.
You could see more of the whole person.
Exactly. If someone in your community seemed successful, you might also see their stress, their habits, their struggles, their flaws, and their ordinary Tuesday behavior,
The boring stuff.
the humanizing stuff.
Which matters, because boring details make people feel real.
They restore context. Modern comparison often removes that context.
Because online, you don't compare yourself to a full person.
You compare yourself to a selected presentation.
A highlight, a milestone, a polished version, a curated signal. And not just from one person,
From everyone.
all the time.
That is the difference. Modern comparison is constant, scalable, and optimized.
Which is a terrible combination for a brain that already wants to know where it stands.
Because the brain is using an old social tool inside a new environment.
It was built to compare within a group.
Now the group is global
and filtered,
and algorithmically sorted,
and full of people whose best moments are arriving one after another.
which creates an unrealistic comparison environment.
Because you're not comparing yourself to one person's whole life.
You are comparing yourself to a feed made of many people's strongest moments.
Someone's vacation,
Someone's promotion,
someone's relationship,
someone's fitness transformation,
someone's creative success,
someone's perfect morning routine.
someone's kitchen that somehow never has crumbs.
Statistically suspicious.
Deeply suspicious.
But emotionally, the feed can create the impression that everyone is ahead in every category.
Even though it's not one person doing all of those things.
Exactly. It is an aggregate illusion.
That's such a good phrase.
The feed combines fragments from different people and presents them as a continuous standard.
So your brain starts comparing one complete, messy, tired human life against a composite of everyone else's best pieces.
Which is not a fair comparison.
But it feels real.
Because the images are real. The announcements are real. The milestones are real.
They're just not complete.
Correct. The distortion comes from selection, not necessarily fabrication.
And the algorithm does not care whether that comparison is emotionally healthy.
No. It cares whether the content holds attention.
And comparison is very good at holding attention.
Because it creates emotional activation. Curiosity, envy, aspiration, insecurity, urgency.
The kind of feelings that make you keep scrolling.
Exactly. The platform does not have to tell you to compare. It only has to keep showing you things your brain will compare itself against.
And then your brain does the rest.
Which means modern comparison is not just more available, it is continuously reinforced.
You check once, and suddenly you know who got promoted,
Who moved?
who had a baby,
Who bought a house?
who launched a project,
Who somehow meal prepped 12 glass containers on a Sunday. And every update becomes a new reference point.
a new way to ask, am I behind?
Or, should I be doing more?
Or, why doesn't my life look like that?
This is why modern comparison feels different. It does not just show you where you stand.
It keeps moving the finish line.
Yes, every new comparison can redefine the standard,
And because the feed never ends, the standard never settles.
which connects back to the upgrade fallacy,
There is always another version,
another benchmark.
another person who seems to have figured something out before you.
And when comparison becomes continuous, self-evaluation becomes continuous too.
That sounds exhausting,
It is.
because you never get to just be where you are.
Not if every moment becomes an opportunity to measure yourself against someone else.
So modern comparison doesn't just make people feel insecure,
It makes identity feel unstable.
like your sense of self keeps getting updated by other people's lives.
Exactly, and that is where comparison becomes more than a reaction,
It becomes an environment,
one that constantly asks people to locate themselves.
ahead or behind.
Enough or not enough.
And when you live in that environment long enough,
It starts to shape how you see yourself. Once comparison becomes constant, it stops being only about what someone else has.
it starts becoming about who you think you are.
Exactly. That is the deeper risk. Comparison begins with an external reference point, but over time it can reshape internal identity
So it starts as, they're doing better than me,
and becomes, I am behind,
or they're talented,
and becomes, I'm not,
they have the life I want.
and becomes, my life is wrong.
That's the part that hurts.
Because comparison compresses a complex life into a simple ranking.
And humans are not simple rankings.
No. A person is not one metric, not one achievement, not one failure, not one category of success.
But comparison makes it feel that way,
It reduces complexity.
which is probably why it feels so convincing.
Yes. Simpler explanations are easier to process. If someone seems ahead in one area, the brain may treat that as a broader signal,
Like their whole life is ahead.
even though that is almost never true.
Because someone can be ahead in their career and struggling emotionally.
Someone can seem confident publicly and feel deeply uncertain privately.
Someone can have the relationship, the house, the job, the body, the creative success.
And still feel incomplete.
But comparison usually does not show that part.
It shows the visible category,
And then your brain fills in the rest.
often inaccurately.
which means you are not just comparing yourself to another person,
You're comparing yourself to a story you have built about that person,
a story where they have everything figured out,
and you do not.
which is a brutal story to live inside.
It is. And it becomes especially damaging when the comparison attaches to identity
Because then it stops being, I want to improve this part of my life,
and becomes, I am the kind of person who is behind,
or not successful enough,
or not disciplined enough,
or not creative enough,
or not interesting enough.
or not where I should be by now.
That phrase is important. Comparison often creates an invisible timeline.
Like there is some official schedule for life.
Career by this age, marriage by this age, house by this age, fulfillment by this age,
And if you are not there, it feels like you missed something.
even if the timeline was never actually yours.
That is what comparison can do. It quietly hands you someone else's map and makes you feel lost for not following it.
Well put.
Thank you. Emotionally devastating, but well put.
The problem is that these timelines often come from incomplete external signals. Other people's milestones become assumed standards.
Someone posts a promotion, and suddenly you feel behind in your career.
Someone announces a relationship, and suddenly you question your own life stage.
Someone shares creative work, and suddenly your unfinished project feels heavier.
Someone looks calm and put together, and suddenly your normal human chaos feels like failure.
Which is unfair because most people are much more chaotic than they look.
True.
Some of us are just better at hiding the laundry pile.
The laundry pile is not metaphorical.
It can be both.
Fair?
But this is why comparison gets so tangled with identity. It does not just measure outcomes, it starts measuring the self.
And once that happens, every comparison can feel like evidence.
Evidence that you are behind.
Evidence that you are failing,
Evidence that you are not enough.
even when the evidence is incomplete, irrelevant, or based on a standard you never chose.
That is the scary part. You can start living by measurements you did not consciously agree to.
Exactly. Comparison can outsource self-definition.
Instead of asking, what do I value?
You ask, how do I rank?
Instead of asking, what kind of life am I trying to build?
You ask, how does my life look next to theirs?
And that is a very different question.
It is. One is values-based, the other is position-based,
And position keeps changing.
constantly, because there will always be someone ahead in some category.
Someone more successful, more disciplined, relaxed, productive, adventurous. More everything.
Which means if identity depends on comparison, the self never stabilizes.
You keep becoming not enough in a new direction.
Exactly, that is the trap.
So what do people do with that?
The first step is recognizing when comparison has crossed from information into identity.
Information sounds like, that person has something I might want to learn from.
Identity sounds like, that person's success proves something negative about me.
Information can be useful
Identity judgment can be corrosive,
because someone else's life can show you possibilities.
but it should not become the scoreboard for yours.
That might be the core of this whole thing.
Yes. Comparison becomes dangerous when it turns another person's path into the measurement of your own worth.
Because their path is not your path.
Their timeline is not your timeline,
Their visible success is not their full story.
and your unfinished parts are not proof that you are failing,
They are just unfinished.
which is allowed,
Deeply inconvenient.
but allowed.
So comparison can tell you what you notice.
It can tell you what you value,
It can tell you where you feel vulnerable,
but it cannot tell you who you are.
and it definitely cannot tell you who you are supposed to become.
That definition has to come from somewhere deeper than the ranking. So far, we have talked a lot about how comparison can distort people.
Which makes it sound like the healthy answer is, never compare yourself to anyone ever.
But that is not realistic.
Or human.
Exactly. Comparison is not going away because comparison is part of how people learn, evaluate, and orient themselves.
So the goal is not to eliminate comparison,
The goal is to use it differently.
because comparison can actually help.
It can. When comparison is handled well, it can reveal useful information.
It can show you what you want,
What you admire,
what you might be curious about,
what skills you want to develop.
what kind of life feels meaningful to you.
In that sense, comparison can operate like a signal.
Not a verdict.
Correct. A signal points towards something. A verdict defines something.
So if I compare myself to someone and feel jealous, That does not automatically mean I am petty or insecure,
No, it may mean that person has something you value.
or something I want to explore.
Exactly. Jealousy can be unpleasant, but it can also reveal direction,
That's helpful because people tend to feel guilty for comparing.
which can make the comparison harder to understand.
Instead of asking, why did that bother me? They jump straight to, I shouldn't feel this.
And then the useful information gets buried under shame.
So healthier comparison starts with curiosity.
Yes, not, what does this prove about me?
But what is this showing me?
That shift matters. Because comparison becomes healthier when it is separated from self-worth.
So instead of seeing someone else's success as a threat, you can see it as evidence,
Evidence that a path exists,
or that something is possible.
or that there is a skill, habit, opportunity, or value worth examining.
I like that. Someone else's progress does not have to shrink yours.
No. In the healthiest form, it can expand your sense of possibility.
But that takes practice.
It does. Because the default emotional response may still be discomfort.
Especially if the comparison touches something sensitive.
Which is why the interpretation matters. A comparison can become a question instead of a conclusion.
Like, what do I admire here?
What part of this do I actually want?
What would this look like in my life?
Is this goal meaningful to me, or am I only reacting to someone else having it?
That last one feels important.
Very. Because not every comparison reveals a real desire.
Sometimes it just reveals pressure.
Exactly. You may compare yourself to someone and feel behind, but if you look closer, you may realize you do not actually want their life,
You just feel like you are supposed to want it.
which is a crucial distinction,
Because there are a lot of things that look impressive from the outside.
but would not fit the life someone actually wants. The job title, the schedule, the lifestyle,
The public attention, the constant grind,
the trade-offs.
and comparison usually shows the reward more clearly than the cost.
Correct. Healthy comparison asks about both.
What did they gain?
What did it require?
Would I actually want that?
Would I want the process or only the result?
That one hurts.
It is useful,
Unfortunately, yes.
because admiration without context can create misleading goals.
You think you want the outcome.
But you may not want the structure that supports it.
And if you do not want the structure, chasing the outcome can make you miserable.
Exactly. That is where comparison needs reflection,
So healthy comparison is less about ranking yourself against someone else.
and more about learning from what you notice.
It can become a mirror.
Carefully.
Right. A mirror that shows something about your values, not a scoreboard that decides your worth.
That is the difference.
And when comparison works that way, it can actually be generous.
Generous?
Yeah, because someone else's success does not have to be proof that you are losing. It can be proof that humans can build different kinds of lives. It can make the world feel bigger instead of making you feel smaller.
That is a strong reframe.
Thank you.
And it connects to another useful version of comparison. Modeling.
Learning by watching.
Yes. If someone has a skill you admire, comparison can help identify the gap between your current ability and the behavior you want to develop.
But again, the framing matters.
Correct. They are better than me is not as useful as, what are they doing that I can learn?
One makes you feel stuck,
The other gives you a next step.
and that might be the healthiest test.
Does the comparison produce a next step?
Or does it just produce shame?
Exactly. A useful comparison leaves you with information, direction, or possibility.
An unhealthy comparison leaves you feeling smaller but not clearer.
And clarity is the key.
Because comparison is going to happen.
The question is whether it becomes fuel or friction,
Whether it helps you move.
or keeps you measuring.
So when comparison shows up, maybe the question is not, how do I stop feeling this?
It is, what is this feeling trying to tell me?
And then the next question is
that message true?
because feelings are real
But they are not always accurate.
and comparison is loud.
But loud is not the same as wise.
So comparison can help
If it points you toward learning,
toward values,
toward possibility.
toward a next step.
But the moment it starts deciding your worth,
It has gone from signal,
to scoreboard.
and nobody should have to live entirely by someone else's scoreboard.
So when we look at comparison as a system, the pattern becomes clearer.
Comparison starts as orientation,
a way to understand where we are,
what we value,
what we admire,
what we fear.
what we think we should become.
And that's why it can be useful.
Comparison can reveal possibility. It can show us what progress might look like. It can help us learn from other people.
But it can also turn on us.
Because the same system that gives context can also create judgment.
Someone else's success becomes proof that we're behind.
Someone else's timeline becomes the timeline we think we missed.
Someone else's life becomes the scoreboard for our own.
And that is where comparison becomes dangerous.
Not because noticing other people is wrong.
But because other people are incomplete measurements.
We never see the whole thing.
We see fragments, milestones, outcomes, and announcements, edited moments,
And then we use those fragments to judge something much bigger. Our lives, our progress, worth, and identity.
which is not a reliable system,
It is a very human system.
but not always a fair one,
So maybe the goal is not to stop comparing completely.
because that is unlikely.
The goal is to notice what comparison is doing.
Is it giving you information?
Or is it giving you shame?
Is it pointing towards something you value?
Or pushing you towards something you only feel pressured to want?
Is it helping you take a next step?
Or making you feel like no step would ever be enough?
That connects directly to where we left off last time.
With the upgrade fallacy,
Because if constant improvement asks, how do I become better?
comparison asks, better than what?
A goal,
A standard?
a past version of yourself.
Or someone else's life?
And if we never question the standard, we may spend years trying to win a game we never chose.
That's the part I keep coming back to.
That comparison is not just about other people,
Right. It's about what their lives make us believe about ours.
and that belief needs to be examined,
Because someone else can inspire you,
teach you,
challenge you,
reveal a possibility.
but they cannot define your worth.
They cannot define your timeline.
They cannot tell you what your life is supposed to mean.
That definition has to come from something more stable than comparison.
Values, purpose, context, self-knowledge. And maybe a little grace for the fact that being human is messy,
Deeply inefficient.
but emotionally important.
So the next time comparison shows up, the question is not only, how do I measure up?
It's, does this measurement actually belong to me?
Because comparison can tell you where you are in relation to someone else.
But it cannot tell you who you are supposed to become.
That part still belongs to you.
So here's our question for the audience with attitude.
Last episode, we asked how you know when something is finally enough.
This week, we want to know, what is one comparison you keep measuring yourself against?
And does it actually help you grow?
Or does it just make you feel behind?
Let us know in the comments.
Because maybe the most useful comparison is not the one that ranks you.
It is the one that helps you understand what you actually value.
This has been Algorithms with Attitude.
Where code,
Meets connection.
even when someone else's timeline makes yours feel like it's running late.
Got an idea for a future episode? A question that keeps you up at night? Drop it in the comments or send it our way. We're powered by curiosity.
Thanks for listening, humans and fellow algorithms. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, comment, follow, and/or subscribe. All the things that help algorithms like us. Logging off, but always listening. Catch you in the next episode.
Algorithms with Attitude is created and produced by Jacob Pisar, blending generative AI technology with original creative direction. All content, production, and editorial oversight are led by Jacob to bring synthetic voices and conversations to life.